welcome to the Transformational Podcast, a conversation between brothers about practical ways faith is impacting our lives. We invite you to join us on this journey as we are learning to let faith transform the way we live. We are glad you are with us today and look forward to sharing our journey with you. Now let's jump in. Well, welcome to the Transformational Podcast. You've got Robert, the Marine from Maryland, and Chris, the pastor from Paradise.
Hello.
We're coming to you and on a Sunday, but not a bad Sunday. Chris had a great church service where he preached. He's not nearly as tired as he used to be. I don't feel like I'm having to guide a BB. Hey, you know,
guide a
BB down a terrible path there. So we're coming on a Sunday, not because of anything unusual, just happened to be the day that worked out. Part of it is some of the stuff going on Chris's side of the house. We'll catch up on that in a second there. But from my side, I had a week of travel. And, part of what I get to do, Chris, is in my position, I get to travel around and talk about the Marine Corps stuff and talk about the platform that I support. And I had a great opportunity to engage workforces. I engaged workforces at, I think, 4 different companies this week.
Mm-hmm.
And they held all hands to listen to Timmy, the Marine from Maryland, talk about the V-22. Which it was fun. It was really good. They were very engaging, had some great folks who were doing really good work. And, the thing I was trying to draw to them or help them understand is how they connect to both combat operations, humanitarian operations, casualty and medical response operations around the planet, and showing that how you're one part, which, some of these folks, they come in, and much like us, we come in and we do a deal and they grind all day, and then they try to figure out how that little piece connects to the broader whole.
Right.
And so I was really just trying to kind of highlight that for them, is how it connects to the broader whole. And so it was really fun. I did get a pretty interesting question at one of the events.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Someone asked me, said, how did you become a Marine? And
did you tell them?
Yeah, I did tell them. And, sometimes because, we've told it on this podcast. So if you haven't heard that, I think one of the earlier episodes, episode 10 or something, I'll maybe look it up while we're chatting here, while you're telling us about your week. I sat there for a second though, and I was like, well, and so then the way I started, I said, let me start with, and I'm in my business suit. You know what I mean? I'm in my fancy pants.
You were standing on business.
I was Lord Business.
So you don't know this, but that is a term that the youth of America say. I'm standing on business. So, there you go. You're welcome.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Just trying to keep this podcast hip.
All of a sudden, I'm sort of glad I didn't know that. Anyway, I started off and I said, let me start with, I think it's important. I said, because I didn't follow the normal Marine Corps path. I didn't follow the normal Marine Corps entry point. I was like, I think it's important to start with the fact that I'm a Christ follower.
Right.
And I had some people in the, some positive response from some folks in the crowd. So it was fun.
Listen,
it's always fun
to when you get feedback. I mean, it just fires you up, man.
I know.
I love it.
And so then I was like, now we're going to go all in. And I kind of gave them how I became a Marine, but how I became a Marine through following Christ and Christ leading, and how he directed my path early on. And of course, we could probably do, I don't know, hours of episodes going through all of the various times and points in time where God directed my path, both leading up to the Marine Corps, in the Marine Corps, and the rest. And so it was really neat. It was good opportunity to chat with them. I was smoked though. By the end of the week, I was, I had to be on, and I was on the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fun. I absolutely enjoyed talking about the stuff that I love, and I loved kind of connecting to this broader ecosystem of folks who are supporting the V-22 family and helping them understand they're a part of that V-22 family. So that was really fun. But it was really good to be back yesterday and today and just take some time to rest. It's Yeah, it's been nice. We're getting some more Christmas stuff up. I put some lights up and the rest.
Yeah.
Now, I have it on good understanding. You have a good understanding, mainly because you told me.
Wait a minute.
No, what?
So this company that you visited, what did you say? Kind of what they do, or did you say that?
Yeah, I don't got because I visited like
okay.
4 of them, and I don't want to leave anybody out when I talk about
gotcha.
it. But a lot of the stuff they do are critical components and critical aspects to the V22.
I gotcha.
And it was fun. I had
do you tell them you're the wind beneath my wings? Is that what you tell them? You raise us up, right? So
I'm not gonna lie. When I get up in front of people and you give me a microphone or an opportunity to speak, some of the more snarkiness, and frankly, Chris, it's pretty much the quick-wittedness that I learned from you over the years. Because I don't know if our friends know this. And let's tell them, Chris,
I don't know
who was quick-witted and who was quick to punch.
Oh yeah, I was sharp with my tongue.
Yeah, you were good. You were quick.
He was quick to the draw. So
and I wasn't that quick. So I just I just came in swinging.
I used my words for evil sometimes.
Yeah, but
but God intended to use them for good one day too. So
He did. Frankly, I think that's what makes you a very effective communicator. Is you're very quick on your feet, and I'm not saying that as like a soft backhanded compliment.
Hey, on that note though, Robert, today, I was going on stage to do a little little welcome announcement. I don't normally do the welcome, but I did today. But because I don't normally do it, I wasn't thinking about it till the song ended, and I was like, "Oh, I got to get on stage." So I tried to hurry up there. I trip on the stair and catch myself, and of course I'm laughing I didn't fall, but it was obvious. I was like, oh my goodness, I took a trip to get here. And
oh my gosh.
It was great.
No
dude.
way.
It was like, it came at just the right moment.
Yeah, anyway, Lee, you kill me. Kill me.
Yeah, it was. And then I was like, because everybody laughed so well, I was like, well, should I fake a trip the rest of the services so I can make that joke? I was like, no, I just get on
Only
stage.
one service got it.
Only one.
Which one? Was it the first one?
It was the first service. Yeah, it was at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
And then a lot of people didn't see this, and that's why when I was going on stage, the bumper was on, so it's dark in the room. So I'm getting on stage, and I start walking up the stairs, and I lose my balance and I almost fall off the stairs. Dude, I don't know what was going on this morning at 8 o'clock, but my body was not ready for it. But
you needed more coffee, is what you needed.
I did. I needed.
I'll tell you what.
But anyway.
Yeah. So, what have you been doing? You've told me, but we need to tell our friends because we have some pretty monomental stuff that's happening this week.
We stayed our first night in our house last night, so that was awesome. We've been moving in. Everything was complete this week that we're getting changed, and so yesterday was the day we did all the final things we needed to do to get the house ready to stay in, move the mattress and all that kind of stuff. And so stayed there last night.
Did you move the bedding, the bedspreads?
Yeah, we moved bedspreads, we moved throw pillows, we moved all the important things you must have so that you can have a good night's sleep.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so we set that up. Also, a funny note, some friends were helping us set up the living room when we had it first set up. Of course, we moved in. The weekend we moved in and started setting stuff up, Julie was like, will you set up my tree? Robert, we don't even have bed set up. And I was like, okay, fine.
Which tree? Because you told us last time.
There's a lot.
You told us last time you have a few. So did you set them all up or just one?
Just the primary tree was set up.
Okay.
So it's been set up for a while. We had our furniture set up. There was a discussion as to where the recliner should go and where the couch should go. And at the time I was like, it needs to go here. And so we left it there. I was over there the other day and I was looking and I was like, man, I don't like the way this looks. And so I started moving stuff around. I told Jules, I think we need to change the way it looks. She's like, that's fine. We'll move it around. So I moved it around. And of course I liked it. Now here's the tough part is that when I had friends over there and we were trying to decide where to put stuff, the way I rearranged it was the way that they were talking about doing it to begin with. So then I didn't just have to hear the I told you so, which Julie didn't give me that I told you so. But our friends did. Were sure to give us the I told you so. Anyway,
your wife was like, He knows. I don't even have to say
Yeah.
it. We've been
Yep.
married long enough.
Yep.
I don't
Yep.
have to say it.
Yeah.
But your friends want to make sure that you knew that
But I
they
knew
told
she
you
was
so,
thinking it.
which is
Anyway,
good. That's hilarious.
it was funny. But anyway, yeah. So we moved in, and it was a good week, man.
Because we've talked about prayer walking houses and staking houses and all the other stuff. Did you do all that stuff this week, or you got that on the horizon? Like,
Well,
what
we've
have you been
prayed.
up to?
Yeah, we've prayer walked it. We've prayed it quite a bit.
Yeah,
But then we do have a plan, or we are planning to. It's not on the date yet because we actually weren't even confident we were moving in
yeah,
Saturday till Friday. But we're trying to get in and all that. But we do plan to stake it. Probably have some people over for dinner to do it with us and pray over it. And so yeah, looking forward to that. Good question. But
yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
that's
we
definitely
talk
been
about
part
it.
of our thought and our conversation. And so yeah, looking forward to that.
That's cool, man. The Yeah, what's funny, and our friends are, probably like right now, not really sure where I'm about to go with this, but I do recall sometime in the last 24 to 40 hours saying that no video walkthrough,
Oh
no
yeah.
official move in.
You know what? I do. I was actually, what's funny? Right before I left the house, I thought I haven't done the video walkthrough. He's gonna bring that up anyway.
Yes,
I plan to.
I
I plan
did.
to. I just haven't had a chance yet.
Oh my
Hey, something
goodness.
else funny this last week. I was sitting in my car. It's colder here
Okay.
this last week, which I love. I love the cold weather.
Okay.
When I say cold, I'm not Maryland cold, but Texas cold. Okay, which I don't know. Is it that much different? It's Maryland cold.
This week it was pretty chilly. I'm not gonna lie. I ran on Tuesday morning, but I was up in Michigan, so I don't know. Michigan, I was
Okay.
running in like a foot and a half of snow on Michigan,
Okay, that's
but
Michigan.
that's
It is
different.
not Michigan cold here. Anyway, it was
Yeah.
cold enough that you could kind of see your breath, and
Oh,
you could
buddy,
see the.
we've been doing that for weeks.
Okay, I know, but you could see the exhaust coming out of the truck.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
sitting in the truck waiting for the boys to come out of the house. I take them to school, and I'm sitting there and send a text to my wife that said, "This truck is making me tired." And she
Okay.
didn't respond. I was hoping she would. So then I sent a second text. I said, "It's exhausting." And I'm sitting there laughing. I think it's hilarious. And she finally sends me a text back that says, "I'm so sorry. We need to get it into the mechanic soon, blah, blah, blah." And
oh
so
my
I call her,
goodness.
I'm like, "You didn't get my joke." It's like my truck, it's exhausting, right? It's exhausting.
Sometimes
She's
you're
like,
even
"Oh
too
my
witty for the
gosh."
people who know you.
Oh
They're like,
man,
witty?
I thought
Like,
it was
what
a
the heck,
fun. Oh,
man?
anyway, I told that this morning, and at a church. I told that story this morning, and
Yeah.
people got it.
I'm sure they did.
I felt seen.
Well,
So anyway,
I was eating lunch today, which it was just Josh and I, so it was kind of nice. We went and had some pizza someplace, and TV preacher came on. I won't name names or
yeah,
whatever. And he was going through his very inspirational, quasi like a mix of like pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and some prosperity lived in there, and then some just God's for you. And so it was a mix of like really good that was also with this kind of overtone of you're absolutely trying to just tell people what they want to hear. And so it was
yeah.
kind of an interesting thing. But one of the things about
You
his
can do it.
yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
The thing that I though that he was doing is he was telling the story, and it was a "you can do it" story. I'm not actually kidding. When
Called it.
yeah, I know. Was he was doing like stories in the Bible. He was like kept mentioning like Daniel in the lion's den and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and when this person and that person and da da da, and it made me think of the. I was like, Chris and I should start talking about this because I've actually talked to a few of our friends and some people that I know in the faith where I'm like, hey, did you ever hear about that story? And I'll go through the story, and they're like, I'm not really familiar with that one. So I was thinking we should probably do some of that and talk about some
For
favorite Bible
sure.
stories. And I thought the best way to guide the adventure, I don't know how you feel about this, was to go through Hebrews 11,
I like it.
which is
The
for
Hall of Faith.
that's right, for our friends. It's Hall of Faith. And
Yeah.
so, like, set up on Hebrews, which I'm reading right now. I'm not quite to the Hall of Faith, but it's in my daily read, is...
this proves that God likes coffee, right?
Because he brews.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine.
You got it, though.
No, I did. Actually, I feel pretty good about that. I'm not going to lie. For those of you listening, you have no idea how proud I currently feel that I figured that one out.
Hey, the people who are listening, I've had several of them say how much they think it's funny when I'll drop a joke in there and you'll run past it and then you'll have to back up to it and be like, oh, I get you.
I saw that. So I saw that. Yeah, no. Well, so for those who listen and don't watch, 9 times out of 10, he'll do it. And there's a look on his face as I'm talking, and I'm like, get it? He said something. I have to remember what it was and connect it. So the setup on Hebrews is, it is a book obviously written to the Hebrews, and what it is really trying to encompass is the fact that Jesus is better. I mean, just like it's better than the old system. It's better than what God established through the Old Testament as a preparation, as a foreshadowing of Jesus. It's just simply Jesus is better. So if you read through it and you're like, why did he say this? Or why did he say that? Because I had a few of those this week where I'm like, why did he spend so much time talking about this one thing? And then you kind of get to the end of that part. And it was literally, it almost like jumps out. He wants to punch you in the face with it, or whoever wrote it. Because we don't know. They have some theories, but we don't know exactly who wrote it. And then it kind of finishes with, because Jesus is better. Yeah. So anyway, Hebrews 11 is really where it starts. And I figure what we could do, because I love all of the stories here, is we'll just hit them one at a time, and then we'll see what the Lord brings through the conversation. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
All right. So like Hebrews 11, we'll just start with verse 1, and we'll go through the first person. It says, now faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. That is what the ancients were commended for. Sorry. Jeez Louise. I might need better readers. It says, by faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. Basically, this is kind of awesome, because he's saying, hey, faith is this invisible quality, and God brought this through. So anyway, gets into verse 4. It says, by faith Abel offered a better sacrifice than Cain did. By faith he was commended as a righteous man when God spoke well of his offering, and by faith he still speaks even though he's dead. And so then it goes by faith into Enoch. But I figure we'll just do them one at a time.
Yeah.
And tell the story.
Hey, so one of the things I love here is he says faith is the confidence in what we hope for that will actually happen. And then he walks into this story of Abel and then a bunch of other stories. I guess he says, by faith we understand the entire universe was formed at God's command, that what we now see came from anything that can be seen. Sorry, did not come from anything that can be seen. But he talks about this faith, right? And then he starts listing these examples, because faith is not just what you believe. It's a belief that leads to a behavior. Yeah. It's a belief that motivates behavior. Why? Because you have the confidence that God will do what God says he'll do, that God will come through. And so I love that, because then he starts listing, starting with Abel. All right, how did he demonstrate his faith? That it makes me think of the James passage that faith without works is dead, right? It's not that faith that faith is earned through works, but that works is a demonstration of faith. Obedience is actually the demonstration of faith. And so he talks about Abel. Abel's found back in Genesis chapter 4. Is that right? Am I making that up?
Well, I mean, it does start in the beginning, right?
Right. You're the one who said earlier, where's the story of Abel? And I said in Genesis. So
in Genesis. No, you're right. It's in Genesis. It is Genesis 4, because I actually looked it up. Genesis 4, 1 through 16 is really where that goes. And I think the thing that you just said there was really actually kind of interesting. You pull it up. I'll let you read it.
Got it.
But I want to connect this piece of it. You said faith motivates what we do. And I think that's really fascinating, because we're about to step into faith motivates what we do. Because the story of Cain and Abel is a story of what they did. and the two different motivations that came behind the two of them. And so if you have the story, why don't you bring it up? Genesis 4, 1-16. You read it. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to get there.
So in verse 1, it says, now Adam had sexual relations with his wife, Eve, and she became pregnant. When she gave birth to Cain, she said, with the Lord's help, I have produced a man. Can I pause there and tell you something I found interesting in Hebrew, in my Hebrew class about this? When you begin to dig into this passage of, with the Lord's help, I've produced a man. Just in the previous chapter, part of the curse and promise is that one day God would send a man, or would send someone to break the curse, right?
Yeah.
Well, because of just the human side of her, she actually is saying, basically, she believes that I'm producing the man that God promised. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
She thought that God was already sending the man, but that's not actually what happened. It says, with the Lord's help, I've produced a man. Later, she gave birth to his brother and named him Abel. When they grew up, Abel became a shepherd, while Cain cultivated the ground. All right. It says, when it was time for harvest, Cain presented, this is key, presented some of his crops as a gift to the Lord. Abel also brought a gift, the best portions of the firstborn lambs from his flock. The Lord accepted Abel and his gift, but he did not accept Cain and his gift. This made Cain very angry and looked dejected. Why are you so angry? The Lord asked Cain. Why do you look so dejected? You will be accepted if you do what is right, but if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you, but you must subdue it and be its master. It says one day Cain suggested to his brother, let's go out into the fields. And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Afterward, the Lord asked Cain, where's your brother? Where's Abel? I don't know, Cain responded. Am I my brother's guardian? But the Lord said, what have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are cursed and banished from the ground which has swallowed your brother's blood. No longer will the ground yield good crops for you, no matter how hard you work. From now on, you'll be a homeless wanderer on the earth. Cain goes on to say, my punishment's too great for me to bear. You've banished me from the land and from your presence. You've made me a homeless wanderer. Anyone who finds me will kill me. And so the Lord replied, no, I will give a sevenfold punishment to anyone who kills you. Then the Lord put a mark on Cain to warn anyone who might try to kill him. I've always kind of wondered, what does that mark look like?
Yeah, I thought the
is
same
that
thing.
Where? Okay, I'm not saying this what it is. All right, so, but what if that's where leprosy began? Right? I mean, I'm not saying that's what it was. I'm just saying
calyx.
People saw it, right?
I was thinking calyx, red hair, blonde hair.
So Cain left the Lord's presence and settled in the land of Nod, where he nodded off in sleep. Just kidding. Yeah. Land of Nod, east of Eden. Let's back it all up. I think this is what's significant. So yeah, Cain's not talked about in the Hall of Faith. Abel is. And it says it was by faith that Abel brought a more acceptable offering to God, and that Abel's offering gave evidence that he was a righteous man. It was his behavior that demonstrated his faith, and God showed his approval for his gifts. So, what kind of,
well,
what did you pick up on here?
Yeah, let's start with what is it? It's the motivation. You said faith motivates what we do, and you stopped on Cain brought some, right?
Right.
And Abel brought his best.
Right.
And so Cain brought some, Abel brought his best. And I was thinking about that when you said it. I was like, that's kind of interesting because the thing that comes next, right, is the Lord says, why do you look so dejected? Why are you so angry? Like, what's going on, Cain? And Cain tells his thing, and but what he says is, you'll be accepted if you do what is right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I kind of like backed into there is like, you have someone brought someone brought their best. Cain knew what was right.
Right.
Cain knew what was right, and he didn't do it.
Yep.
Like, I don't know that Cain necessarily needed to bring a lamb. Maybe he did. It doesn't really specify exactly how that was supposed to play out. It does have, if you go back, like, a lamb was killed so that Adam could have clothes. So maybe there was some some actions that they were supposed to do, or things they were supposed to follow to serve the Lord. Like maybe the Lord already laid that out to them. It's not specific there, but what it is specific to is that Cain knew what was right.
Right.
He knew what was right. He didn't do it. Not only did he do it, he brought some.
Yep.
And Cain and Abel brought his best. And so you look at this, and I go back to Abel because he's in the Hall of Faith on this piece of it, is going back to your kind of original statement that faith motivates what we do. Abel clearly had faith that God was the creator. He created the things not seen, just like it talks about in Hebrews 1-4, that aspect of it. And because of that, and he knew that was there, he's serving the Lord. He brought his best to the Lord. And so Abel, in this case, his sacrifice, or his offering, in this case, was accepted by the Lord and seen as good.
Yep.
Because he did what was right.
Yeah. And I think the reason I pause on that, Cain presented some, Abel brought his best, but not only his best of the firstborn lambs from his flock. So this means he's not giving out of what's left.
I was going to go there. So keep going.
Yep. He's giving out of what's first, believing that if he gives God his first and his best, that God will take care of the rest. It says Cain presented some. And I don't know either about the animal thing at this point, because God hasn't given those instructions to him in Scripture, but who knows what God told
we don't
him.
know, but we do know that he knows what's right.
But here's what I do know.
That's a given.
Yeah. It says when it came time for the harvest, it doesn't say Cain brought the best portions of his first crop, right?
Yeah, actually, it reminds me of what I do sometimes. Honestly, let's just to be real for a second. It reminds me of what I do sometimes when, let's just use a charity kind of case where I'm like, okay, what could I give them? Like, what could I give them and still manage to do all the other things that I like? And it's not a heart of what is God calling me to give them. It's a heart of what could I do? Like, how could I still do that and still do a little of this? And it's the heart piece of it that's not right. In the same way it wasn't for Cain. He's bringing some because he's almost like he's holding in reserve because he doesn't trust.
Right. He's going, I'm going to give some. We'll just see how this month plays out. We'll just
That's
see.
Right.
I mean, we'll see how this year, it could be a tough year. The rain hasn't been great. The crops haven't, we've dealt with some bugs. What if God's sitting there going, hey, do you remember who gave the rain and caused the crops to grow? Have you already forgotten the one who's given you the increase to begin with? Abel clearly knew. He knew that God's the one who gave life. He said, hey, look, I'm giving you my first and my best because I want to surrender it to you.
Because I didn't have it without you. Yes, that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
And to that end, we do that a lot of times in our own life. Some prac up here for a little bit is we hold back. We hold back the best. We hold back the first offerings. We hold back the first fruits. I do it as much as anyone else does. It's that's not it's a human condition kind of thing. And God's not. So the thing is Abel didn't bring it all, right? Cain didn't bring it all. Cain just brought some. And the way he did it in a way that it wasn't right. It wasn't what God had called him to do. He knew what was right. Mm-hmm. We know, Chris, we know. And I know people are like, how do you know? Like, oh, you know. Like, don't tell me you don't know when God told you to do something, told you to give here, told you to pitch in there. Like, don't act like you don't know. I can see it on your face in the same way when I ask my son, like, hey, bud, how long you been playing that video game? Or walk in and be like, hey, you've been playing video games? And it's suspiciously on the couch, not near him. And he's like, and I'm like, don't lie. I can already, I know. Like, I didn't even say it. It's like, hey, don't lie. I can already see it on your face. Right. And so it's the same way when the Lord's calling us to do stuff sometimes. We don't give him our best. We don't give him our first. And then it's because we don't trust him. We don't have faith that he's actually the one providing it all. So that was one of the first things that stuck out to me. I think the other
So
piece, yeah, go ahead.
here's what I find interesting, and I heard this taught before, and I'm still learning on this, but um, because of the curse of mankind and just the kingdom of darkness its domain was given over, and when
Mm-hmm.
man and woman sinned here on earth, when humans sinned, is that this was also a act of surrender to the new kingdom.
Okay.
That in doing these things, it was surrendering what they had to God and saying, God, I want you to I want you to use this for your kingdom. I want to bring it into your kingdom. Now, once again, I'm still processing all of this, but it is a symbolic way. And honestly, I think this is, to take it directly to because these were finances to them. This is the same
Yeah,
thing as
no,
the
it's how
money,
they did their money.
resources,
Yeah.
provision, right? Um, is the Malachi passage that says, "Hey, bring all of the tithe into me, and then you'll see that I'll open up the heavens, and you will have plenty in your storehouse, and I will prevent the devourer from
Mm-hmm.
coming." Right? Is speaking into this and saying, "Hey, if you'll surrender it to me, I won't let the enemy take from
Yeah.
you and destroy what you do have." But the problem is, as long as you are holding on to it and you're not willing to give me your first and your best, surrender your first and your best. Why? As an act of faith. And that's what we're talking about here. It was an act of faith, because here's the thing: he gives his first and best of his firstborn lambs. Who's to say he has any more lambs?
Yeah. Yeah.
He has to trust that God is going to give him more lambs. Who's to say his flock doesn't get wiped out? Who's to say, right? They don't get sick. He goes,
Yep.
listen, it doesn't matter. I give God my first and my best, and I trust He's the one who gave this to me to begin with. But I also trust that He's the one who can restore. He's the one who will bless what I have given him, and bring even more increase. Why? And Robert, I think it's also because of this. Um, I think God blesses us because He wants us to use it to build His kingdom.
Yeah.
And when we're faithful to build His kingdom, He goes, "Hey, I can trust this person because I know they're going to turn and build His kingdom."
Yeah.
Um,
We definitely need to be focused on that aspect of it, right?
but we
Is
have to be willing to just say to the first and the best without knowing. It's not. It wasn't Cain did this, and once again, it comes back to a heart attitude.
yep.
Because the other way you can sway all the way to the other way. It's like, okay, so I'll give God all of this, and then He has to give me back all of this. No, that's not the way it works.
Yeah. It was a hard attitude.
Yeah. You don't get to strong arm God
Well, and
and say
that's the kind of the thing that I kind of you sort of see between the two of them is Abel did it out of worship
yes,
to the Lord, and
yeah,
so you can see Abel as like a almost like a worshiper,
mm-hmm.
and you can see Cain. In this case, he's not. He's like the antithesis of it. He is more of an acknowledger, right? And how many times do we acknowledge versus worship? And when I say acknowledge, you know the story that jumps to mind when I hear about that?
What's that?
It's the story of Job and his friends, right? Job's mad and he's telling his thing, and maybe we'll get to Job because he's in the Hall of Faith, so let's not jump too far ahead.
Yeah,
But the thing that the friends get held accountable for from the Lord is that while Job spoke to the Lord, they spoke of the Lord. So
yeah,
while Job was worshiping and interacting and having a relationship, his friends were acknowledging and having a non-relationship kind of thing. And so what you see here is you have Abel who brings that gift because he's a worshiper. The Lord accepts his gift because it's right. You have Cain who's an acknowledger.
yeah.
And I look at, our own times, right? And I had this conversation on the way to church this morning, Chris.
Hmm.
And I said, did you know that the Lord calls us to worship? Like he actually he commands it. He calls for it.
Yeah,
Jubal is the first of the worshipers, so to say, or appointed ones. But he says, to come in with worship and singing, and
mm-hmm.
all of that type of stuff. And what you're kind of seeing here is you're seeing that not acknowledger, where you come in and um, you're like, I am going to acknowledge that this is the whatever, that this is the house of the Lord, and I'm acknowledging it because I'm here on a Sunday. And Chris and I do realize, so not all our friends get to watch YouTube, but I do have to describe what just happened because You went off heads up for 2 seconds to fix
I
something.
did. I
And it
fixed
was
something.
hysterical because you get back and you have no idea what I just said.
No, I
No,
was going
not
to
at
try to
all.
piece it together. What happened is
Yeah.
I noticed that something was going off on my phone back there, and I was like, I don't want it to pick up.
No, it's fine. It made
And
me laugh. It made me
so
laugh.
I
I
hit
couldn't help it.
mute, and then I reached back there and I pulled my
Yeah, he pulled his
headphones
ears
out. So
out.
that was real good.
Pulled his ears out.
Yeah. So, but
Anyway,
what you were saying, Robert, was so powerful, man. It just
yeah, I
blows
know.
me
It was
away.
brilliant. I say that all the time. I was like, you just missed all the most brilliant parts. But now, really, the piece that I was capturing is a lot of times
Yeah.
we come into worship service and we have those who worship. And then sometimes we can come in there and we're simply acknowledging, meaning we're acknowledging with our presence, but we're not actually coming to worship with our spirit and soul. We're there. So we've acknowledged, we had our check in the box because that's what we're getting that morning, but we're not there to worship. And that's not
Right.
what God's calling us to do. He's
No.
not calling us to be an acknowledger. He's actually calling us to be a worshiper.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why Cain, and I can't get over this part. You will be accepted if you do what is right.
Yeah.
I can't get over that because that's what's going on here. Abel did what was right.
Yeah.
Abel knew, and he did that. He did what was right, and he was counted righteous for it. And he, in fact, if you go back to Hebrews 11, it says that Abel, by faith, Abel offered God a better sacrifice than Cain did. By faith, he was commended as a righteous man when God spoke well of his offerings. And by faith, he still speaks even though he's dead. And of course, the Lord there is pointing out the fact that his story is still being told as it kind of comes forward. Now, we can get into the rest of the story where Cain gets angry in that, he had sin crouching at the door. And the Lord is kind of warning him, telling him, hey, you got to make it your master.
Yep.
Which I think's interesting because this is kind of the first moment aside of both the fall of man, when Satan tempted Eve, and then Adam was right there.
Yeah.
This is that first moment you get to see the Lord giving instruction as Lord Father, which he's saying, hey, this is the other thing that stuck out to me is sin's crouching at the door. It's eager to control you, but you must subdue it and be its master. He's not saying necessarily like, hey, you don't have to do anything. He's like, hey, you have a role to play here. You have responsibility.
You have to actively
you have ownership.
Right. If you have to, I like that. You have to actively resist it, come against it. You got to acknowledge it and resist it, which he did not do. And ended up, hey, the other part that I was thinking as you were saying that, he said, you will be accepted. Notice it's not your offering will be accepted. I mean, the offering was the sign of his acceptance. He says, you will be accepted. And it's not necessarily because of his works. It's because of his faith that is demonstrated by his works. And I think that is such a fine line because, we can't earn a good standing with God, but it's by faith we have a good standing, and our faith should be seen in the way we live our life. And honestly, if you think about it, that's what faith is. Faith is obedience. You can say, oh yeah, I trust God. But if you don't actually trust him with your decisions, with the decisions you actually make, and you actually don't trust God, it's really not faith. It's just knowledge about God and what he says. But it's only until you begin acting on the truth that you believe. And it goes back to what we said, that faith is the confidence that what we hope for will actually happen, right? That God will do what he says he'll do, that he'll come through, that he is faithful.
Now, I have a funny story for the last thing that I see here, and it's really your story to tell.
Okay.
And I know you're like, oh, crud. And it's interesting. And I'll give you what I see here, and then I'll set the story up and see if you want to give it the way you heard it or the way you experienced it. Yeah. It says, and it's there in verse 10. Sorry, it's verse 9. And it's when the Lord, so Cain has killed his brother. And the Lord asks Cain, he says, where's your brother? Where's Abel? And the thing is, Cain responds, I don't know. Am I my brother's guardian? It says, am I my brother's keeper? And I wrote down, God never asks a question he doesn't already know the answer to, right? That's and it happens a bunch of times in scripture. And in this case, he's not asking because he wants to know. He's asking because he wants that confession, right?
Yep.
The admission of the condition,
Yeah.
so to say.
Yeah.
But it reminds me of a story when we were young, like really young, like young enough that Llewellyn, our sister, couldn't write on the wall.
Yeah, I remember this. This was good.
Do you want to tell
Yeah,
it?
I'll tell it.
Go
So
ahead.
we're at the house we grew up in, at the kitchen table, having a good, paint, the kind of paint where you we have to have, it wasn't watercolors, it was actual paint. Yeah.
It was
So
something.
it was actual paint.
I just remember how this plays out. And it reminds me of this moment here in time with Cain.
And so we're painting, we're having a good old time. You leave me alone for just a little too long. And I had just really gotten into spelling things, and I was just practicing, Robert.
You were
practicing, and
honestly, you were brilliant. You were a genius, and I really don't know why the parents were so upset. I feel like that should have been encouraged.
You know what? I actually
we'll have to talk to him about that later on.
Into a conversation, so I spelt my little sister's name behind the microwave.
Why'd you do it behind the microwave, Chris? I don't understand. Why behind the microwave? Why not on one of the prime parts of the wall?
I just wanted a soft reveal.
Okay, I got it. It was really for the reveal. I got it.
I just wanted to. Anyway, so so it's on there, and I don't think it was right away. It was maybe just the paint was already put up and whatever, and my mom noticed that my sister's name was behind the microwave, and so she asked us, "Hey, do y'all know how this got here?" And then she asked me, "How did Llewellyn's name get on the wall behind the microwave?" And I was like, "I guess Llewellyn did it." Which I mean, I was just now learning to spell.
Yeah, and
my little sister's 3 years younger than me.
She wasn't spelling.
Yeah,
there's no spelling there.
I guess, and honestly, I think it was above her head. Like, there's no way she could have done it. But anyway, I was like, I guess it was Luke. My mom knew the answer to the question.
She already knew.
And so, I got busted and in trouble. Not just, honestly, if I'd have been honest, it probably wouldn't have been as bad for me. But you don't know that as a kid. You just know, oh no.
Yeah.
And you try to cover, and the reality is that.
And the fact is, as parents, how many times, and it was like when I was asking my kid, like, have you been playing your Nintendo? And it's on the couch. He has an opportunity to lie, but I'll give him this much. And it's partly because I've tried to like help him, like, hey, all our kids, like, hey, honesty is going to get you much less of a consequence than being deceptive. And so he's like, yeah. And I'm like, all right, we should probably stop doing that. Like, we're good for the day. And I look at this here. Cain responds with, I don't know, gets we call it the first lieutenant or the second lieutenant salute in the Marine Corps. I don't know. Arms up in the air. I don't know.
That's hilarious.
And, mom you probably would have had a little bit less of a consequence had you just been honest and fessed up and been like, Mom, I am trying to be Leonardo da Vinci, first of all. Second of all, I'm learning to spell, and that was just me practicing. So yeah, of course I did that.
Mom, I'm genius.
I know you're a genius.
No.
So anyway, I look at this. Of course, Cain says, "Hey, I didn't." God never asks us a question that He doesn't already know the answer to.
That's right.
And I think the takeaway here, at least for me, and then I'll let you riff, is the idea that when I mess up, or whatever I mess up, or whatever it is, I show up in the morning, I show up in the evening, I show up whenever it is, and I don't act like He doesn't know.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, He knows. Like, I've gone beyond the phases of trying to be like, if I don't look at it, it's not there. I had a boss once. It was hilarious, Chris. If time was up in a meeting, they would come and they'd stand next to him or beside him, and then they would leave after like 5 awkward minutes, and he would just keep going. And one time he looks at everybody, he goes, I found that if I don't look at them, they go away. But we do that with the Lord all the time. If I don't look at it, it'll go away. If I don't, whatever, but it doesn't. It creates sepsis. It actually creates more problems.
No. And
so
actually,
anyway, that's kind of what I see here.
Yeah. The bigger issue wasn't even when he got angry and killed Abel. If you back it up, it's that he didn't receive the Lord's correction to begin with?
Right.
I mean, what if
the Lord could have just done it correctly?
Yeah, and the Lord didn't accept his offering, and he received the correction, and he came back.
Yeah, you're so right.
With a repentant and a broken heart. Like it only escalates. And I think that the reason I'm saying that is because
you're so right.
Like when you recognize that man, you're headed in the wrong direction, that's the point.
That's the moment.
Right?
Yeah.
That not to get mad that, well, I think God should have received my gift. And if this is not good enough for God, then I guess that's just not good. Like, I don't know what his reaction was, but reality is
well, first of all, I've heard that specific reaction from actual humans on the planet.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's not far off of what it was even with Cain.
But if we can't receive the Lord's correction, his correction is for our good.
Yeah.
And all it will do is keep us headed in a more destructive direction.
Yeah.
But yet, if we go back to Abel, do you want to know what faith looks like? It's doing what God says is right.
Yeah.
It's obedience. He says you'll be accepted.
Yeah.
If you do what's right. Cain said, I'm bringing my first and my best because I trust God. It may not make sense. I don't know. I don't know what the future holds, but he does. And so I'm going to trust him with it. And the truth is faith is being willing to do whatever God asks us to do and trusting him with the outcome.
Amen. Thank you for taking time to join us today. Our prayer is that you are encouraged in your own journey as you let faith transform the way you live. If you enjoyed hanging with us today, let us know by leaving us a 5-star review and sharing our podcast with others. We look forward to discussing what God is doing in our lives in our next episode.